お腹すいたな。
All right, so today bread is like a 5-second decision at 7-Eleven. But back in 13th century Europe, bread was literally life. Not even kidding. Bread wasn't just food, it was the main quest. It was money, it was status, it was everything. So if you really want to understand medieval bread, you can't just look at an oven. You gotta step straight into the mud of a feudal village. Back then, rural life revolved around the lord's manor or castle. Your whole existence was basically locked behind the seasons, the church. And whatever rules the local lord felt like enforcing. For peasants, getting bread wasn't some cozy recipe moment. Nah, it was a team grind. No tech, tons of gatekeeping, zero shortcuts. So the story starts in the fields. Everything ran on this system called manorialism. And yeah, the land setup was kind of brutal. You had the domain that was the lord's personal flex zone. And then everyone else got these tiny strips of land just to barely survive on. About 3/4 of the population were serfs, not slaves, but definitely not free either. Think of it like being permanently subscribed to a piece of land. You trade freedom for protection and the right to grow food. They had to grind on the Lord's fields first before touching their own crops. And they weren't growing that clean white wheat either. They grew maslin, a mix of wheat and rye. Planted together because relying on just wheat was risky business. If the harvest failed, yeah, that was basically GG. People would stretch their dough with beans, peas, even acorns, just to not starve. Now you finally harvest your grain. Cool, time to mill it, right? Wrong. Grinding your own grain at home was straight up illegal. Huge L. Under feudal law, everyone had to use the manorial mill. Total monopoly. The lord owned it. You paid a tax by giving up part of your flour just to grind your own food. The mill, the land, even the oven, all tools of economic control. And the flour you brought home? Not that fluffy white stuff. It was dark, chunky, full of bran. The real definition of daily grind. Back at the cottage, it's baking time. No mixers, no machines. Everything happened in this massive wooden trough. Kneading that coarse dough was basically medieval gym day. People straight up punched the dough until it finally cooperated. And yeast? No, packets, obviously. They used barm, that weird foamy stuff, skimmed off fermenting beer. Since everyone brewed, it was the village yeast supply. Some used sourdough too, keeping a starter from the last batch like a legacy item. The cottages were cold and damp, so they'd wrap the dough in wool and park it near the fire, just hoping it would rise. No guarantees, just vibes. Now for the bake. Same story as the mill, having your own oven was basically illegal. Officially, it was about fire safety. Unofficially, so the Lord could collect more fees. Enter the communal oven, the four banal. This thing was the village stomach. It was run by the Fournier, the oven guy. He'd heat the stone chamber till it was insanely hot. Scrape out the ash, then people would line up with their loaves and pay again. Coins or bread. Using this long wooden shovel called a peel, he slid the dough onto the hot stone floor. The heat did the rest. Whole thing felt like a community event, but honestly, it existed because there was no other option, and when the bread came out, you could literally see the class system in 4K. The rich ate Panda Man that clean, white, fancy bread. Villagers got Maslin loaves. And the poorest? They ate horse bread made from beans, bran, and husks. Hard, dry, zero flavor. Stale bread even became trenchers and edible plates for stew. After eating, you'd give the soggy bread plate to the poor or the dogs. Bread mattered so much that in 1267, England dropped the assize of bread and ale. Basically, a national vibe check on bread prices and weight. If a baker tried to scam people, public humiliation. Dragged through town with a fake loaf hanging from their neck, no mercy. So yeah, from the Lord's fields to the communal oven, the story of medieval bread is really the story of survival. Every loaf was a small win against a system that was kinda stacked against you. All for one thing. One hot, steaming loaf of bread. Here's the part that messes with my head, though. In Minecraft, bread is like background noise. You punch wheat, craft it, move on. Zero emotional attachment. But in the 13th century, bread was literally the end game. Not diamonds, not armor, just not starving. And low-key, that makes modern survival games feel kind of fake. Like we're role-playing struggle, while they were actually living it. So here's my hot take. If medieval peasants saw us today grinding virtual wheat for fun, they'd probably think we're insane. What do you think? Does Minecraft make us appreciate history more? Or does it accidentally make us forget how brutal it really was? I'm actually curious. Argue in the comments. Don't be polite.